This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. We're here for the council meeting of October 20th. We are in person as council as a whole, so we will be voting a little differently than we have been doing for the last over a year anyway. So council will be voting by raising or showing their hand for yes or no. In terms of public hearings, we will still be taking online or phone call call-in, sorry, and yeah, so we'll get the meeting started. I guess I'll do introductions as well, sorry. So with us we have Councillor Shane Pelletier. Evening. Councillor Curtis Clayton. Hi, everyone. We have our CEO, Mitch Duval. Evening. Myself, Mayor Chris Ewan. Councillor Janine Boulanger.
Hello.
Councillor Ron Manchuk.
Good evening.
And our planning officer, Tanya Waddell.
Hello.
Okay, so we will start. Item 1, meeting called to order. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Manchuk.
Thank you. Second.
Councillor Pelletier.
Thank you. Any comments or questions before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Open the meeting at 7:01 p.m. Thank you. Item 2, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Clayton.
Thank you. Second.
Boulanger.
Thank you.
In regards to the agenda, if it's okay with council to do the public hearings first and the delegation thereafter. When it comes to the public hearings, that's items 6.1.3 and 6.2.1 all have to do with the same issue, so we'll put those as one public hearing.
Perfect. Good suggestion, Mr. CEO. Council's okay with that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. Any other changes or additions from council?
No,
Not here.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried. So we will move to, well, should we do the minutes first, Mr. CEO?
Up to council.
Go straight to
Yeah, we'll go straight to the hearings. Okay, so we'll go to public hearings, and I'll say it again, so we will be doing it online, through the phone, and in person. When there's a delegation online, I will call for it. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or against online, then I would ask you to turn your camera on or unmute yourself and just say your name for the record, please. So we will start with 6.1.1, V16-2021, Maynard, 1930 Adelard Road, Grand Point.
The proposal is to vary the coverage in a rural residential RR zone from 2,400 square feet to 3,456 square feet for the purpose of an additional 1,200 square foot accessory building. Notices were sent out according to the Planning Act, and council has the site plan as well as letters of objection that have been received at the office.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing at 7:03 p.m. Is there anyone online wishing to speak? Is there anyone there, Tanya? No?
there are 2 people online, but
Oh, they'll be able to chime in. Okay, sorry, I thought you were muting. Is there anyone on the phone wishing to make a comment or speak in favor? Anyone in person wishing to speak in favor?
Yeah. Have to speak if
You don't have to, no, yeah, sorry, so you don't have to speak if you don't want to, but you're more than welcome to make any comment. I will be going around again, doing a last call. If there's anyone that's speaking against or has any general questions, then that would be the time for the person that would like to make any comment to answer the questions, more than welcome to do so. So you don't have to speak if you don't want to.
Okay.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor in person? Anything received in favor?
Nothing received in favor.
Thank you. Is there anyone online wishing to speak against? Anyone on the phone wishing to speak against? Anyone in person wishing to speak against? And the letters received against?
We've received 3 letters against the proposal. First one is Charlene Wright at 1907 Adelard Road. I received the above notice and I'm in opposition of this additional building. This is an excessive amount of structures for a 2-acre lot. it's not likely would be, sorry. My words and glasses need to go together. It's not like they would only be over the maximum by a few feet. Pretty much the entire structure is over the limit. The diagram included with the notice does not show the true picture of what this lot currently looks like. I encourage whomever would be voting on this physically take a look at this yard to appreciate how much land is already taken up by the house and the 3-car garage, attached garage, and double detached garage, pool house, etc. I do not know what the intent of it is for this building, but given that it would have its own access separate from the main driveway, allowing this additional structure would only pave the way for it to be used for commercial purposes in the future, either by the current occupant or any future occupants. Something we do not need more in this area. In addition, the main house, attached garage, and detached garage already have an excessive amount of lights all the way around them, so much that you could probably see them from the moon. I can only assume that the additional building would have the same, and given that it would be located, all those lights would be shining right in front of my window and neighbors' bedrooms. I would like to point out that this is the third variance notice that I have received in the last 2 years, 2 of which were approved, 1 of which I was opposed to, and 2 of which were made by the same property owner. If people purchase lots knowing the rules and can then just apply for a variance that council will approve, then what is the point of having the rules in the first place? A variance is being requested and approved should be an abnormality, but not the norm. Second letter is from Alan and Corinne Webb at 1912 Adelard Road. Dear council members and Mayor Ewan, we are writing to express our objection to the above noted variance application under the Reshot zoning bylaw 9-2019 as amended. We object to the applicant's proposal for the following reason. This is the applicant's second variance request. The applicant request is not for a minor variance, i.e. 10 or less, but amounts to a substantial variance as it exceeds 50%. The building of the third garage on the applicant's property is excessive, not necessary, and considered unreasonable. And the building of the third garage on a 2.5-acre lot is determined to residential and future residential development. Point 1, second variance requested by the applicant. The applicant's first variance request, variation V3 2019, was brought to council in April of 2019 and was approved. The variation request was to vary the minimum required front yard distance of 100 feet to 40 feet for the purpose of building a 30 by 40, 1,200 foot detached garage or shop. The applicant is now asking for another variance request for the purpose of another garage or shop on his property, since this building exceeds the site coverage in our rural residential zone. The applicant purchased a vacant lot, 2.5 acres infill lot. This lot is rectangular in shape and there is no uniqueness or anomaly in the lot. It is difficult to imagine that the applicant needs 2 variances to build on a vacant 2.5-acre lot. The applicant should have planned his lot according to our current zoning bylaw. A variance request should be considered the exception, not the norm. Point number 2, not a minor variance. The applicant's lot currently contains a detached garage 30 by 40, a shipping container 20 by 8, a storage shed 8 by 6, an ice rink hut 10 by 10, and a 30 by 35 pool house. The applicant now wants to build a third garage or shop 30 by 40. This results in a total of 3,758 square feet. According to our zoning bylaw, the applicant is only allowed to build to a maximum of 2,400 of accessory buildings. Please note that some of these measurements and estimates, we believe them to be our estimates, and we believe them to be relatively close. The applicant building proposal will result in him exceeding the maximum site coverage in our rural residential zone by 1,358 square feet or 56.5%. This is a substantial variance that should not be considered lightly. 3, building a third garage is excessive, not necessary, and considered unreasonable. As previously mentioned, the applicant currently has a detached garage. He also has an oversized triple-car garage attached to his residential home, a storage container, and a storage shed. One must consider whether the building of a third garage is necessary. Is it reasonable to conclude that an ordinary person requires 3 sizable garages for the purpose of maintaining a single-family residential dwelling on a 2.5 acres? Does one need 4,100 square feet of storage and garage space for the purpose of maintaining a single-family residential dwelling? We think not. Maybe if the applicant was on a 5-acre or 10-acre lot. Also, most of the homes in the rural residential zone of Grand Point have 2 or 3-car garage attached to their home, along with one outbuilding, consisting of one oversized garage. Therefore, it is our opinion that a third garage would be deemed unnecessary and excessive. 4th point, the building of a third garage on a 2-acre lot is detriment to the residential and future residential development. The applicant has only been living here for a year and has already exceeded his building capacity and lot. He desires and wants more streamlined to a 5 or 10-acre lot. Should he decide to expand his ambitions elsewhere and sell, we are concerned that the applicant's site plan and proposed building is a perfect setup and scenario for this garage to be used for a business venture. On one side of this lot is a residential home with his more sufficient garage and space with a detached and attached garage. On the other side of his lot, which is set away from his home, he is proposing to establish another shop which will have a separate driveway. The separate access, along with the fact that there is some distance between his residence and the shop, allows for privacy and noise issues, all which makes it too convenient for a business. Also, while the applicant may intend to use the proposed building for personal use, the lifespan of the building can last for years and generations. These buildings, especially given the factors, have given residents of our communities issues, and as people move into these homes, think that they could bring their business along with them. There are 2 such businesses on Bushman Road. We ask that council considers the above comments when deciding on this matter. Thank you for your time and consideration. And last letter from Mohammed Asefi and Marianne Mirzay of 231 Bushman. Dear council members and Mayor Ewan, we are writing to express our objections to the above noted variance application under the Richelieu zoning bylaw as amended. We object to the applicant's proposal for the following reasons. 1, the building of a third garage is excessive and unnecessary. And 2, the building of a third garage on a 2.5-acre lot is a deterrent to residential and future residential development. Building of a third garage is excessive and unreasonable. The applicant already has a big attached triple-car garage and detached garage. We believe it's more than enough for a necessary ordinary family, except when they want to use it for other purposes like business. We live in a residential area, and we all try to keep the environment in peaceful and quiet and respectful manner. Building over extra space, meaning adding more cars, instruments, and people and noise to the area where it should be less crowded and fits with the 2.5-acre residential area. If we approve these things, the next new people will ask for the same opportunities and would face the change, and it would change the face of the area to a total different environment. Our kids grow here, and we are not happy with having neighbors doing their business in their lot and bringing strangers to their business in the area. We appreciate if council considers the above comments when deciding the matter. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I will go around again. Is there anyone wishing to make any comments in favor or against online or on the phone? Anyone wishing to make any comments in favor or against or general questions in person? Pardon me. Come on up, sir.
All right. Should I sit here?
Yeah, take a seat. You can leave your mask on, take it off. It's up to you whenever you're speaking.
Okay. Hi, that's my house.
Hi.
How's it going? Yeah, I want to address a few things. So, it's not for business, I can tell you that. The reason I need it is because my second garage is a heated shop that I do woodworking in, and I can't park anything in it because it's too dusty. It just ruins everything. I have 3 boys, they have a lot of toys, so it's for the lawn tractor, the dirt bikes, all that kind of stuff. The only reason I have a second garage that I just got a variance for is because I built a walkout basement, and there's no access to my backyard because there's a farmer field behind, and a hill. You can't get to my backyard if you've seen my yard. You just can't. So it's actually not going to be a driveway, it's just an approach that I've used for construction or for driving things, so it'll be grass all the way up to the shop. I think the light comment's a little funny, because it's, you know, our kids are all under 5 years old, we're always in bed before 7 p.m., so I don't think the lights have been on since I moved there, maybe once. And then my neighbor clearly trespassed to measure all my things. But anyway, so to me, it is purely just a storage, not for business. I'm not running any sort of business. I own a tech company and I have offices in the city. I don't need to work out of there. And, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the only other option to park all my stuff is have them outside or put 15 shelter logic things like some of the neighbors have and trucks all over, which I think is more of an eyesight or an eyesore to the community than a nice, proper storage unit. So that's my opinion.
Appreciate it. Council, do you have any questions or comments? Mr. Menard?
So you won't be creating a second driveway then? It'll just be
No.
the main.
I just want the approach for access.
Okay.
No driveway at all, because it'd be long and then I don't want it there, no. And then the only other reason I'm like excessively over the limit is because like I've been in a pool house. The pool house is mostly like, it's only 300 square feet of pool storage. The rest is a pergola. Like it's an uncovered 4-post thing. It's not like a monstrosity. So without that, I could build this without a variance, right? It kind of seems silly to me. It's not even a enclosed structure most of it.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
well, I just have a comment about these letters that they're just concerned, as you can probably well imagine, that once you guys decide you don't want to be there anymore, you up and leave, and the next person comes in and they say, ooh, look at all these buildings that I can create a business in. I think that's one of the big concerns in Grand Point, that people are so against home-based businesses, and it just attracts people and traffic and problems. So I can see their point. How to address that has always been hard for us to decide on, and I think that's gonna be the
Yeah, I totally understand that too. It's not at all, and in fact, it's tucked out or in the back, and like my lot's the biggest lot on the road. I have 2.5, just over 2.5, everyone else is 2 acres, so I have more room. But also, like, if you see my house, we just built a year ago, I'm never moving, I promise you. Never doing this again for what I put into that thing. And my argument to that would be, well, you can't just start a business, you need like permits.
No, exactly.
Like you could deny that at that point, like you can't just, oh, I'm gonna start driving, you know, semi-trucks into there, you need to be able to, it's a wrong, you know.
And it sounds like what you're using is for current, you say you got 3 boys?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've got a lot of stuff that you currently need to, I was just gonna ask, because you know, Discovery Drive has all those man caves and storage facilities. Have you ever considered, would you have use for something like that as opposed to building your own on your yard? You know?
Well, maybe for some, well, not yet, because like it's the kids' dirt bikes and my like lawn tractor, and I just have a bunch of attachments, like the snow blower for the winter that I don't use and the lawnmower in the winter that I don't use. So to go all the way there and to pay $1,200 a month, so I haven't looked into it yet.
Okay.
Just seems excessive, and I'm not gonna have my kids to walk over there to get their little 50cc dirt bikes and quads.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean, if it's currently being used.
Yeah.
The size of what you're asking for, have you considered maybe making it a bit smaller? Would that work? Like, is this the minimum size you would need to make your life perfect?
No,
Obviously.
I probably could go smaller, but I just feel like I just wouldn't want to go through the effort of building it and then be like, oh man, I don't have room. So, no, I probably could. I like the size of my current one, 30 by 40, and I thought it would make sense to do it.
I'm just wondering if council denies it, then your next step, you could possibly, I'm just wondering.
I don't know, like,
Consider
I
going
need
smaller.
something, I don't know, yeah. If I had to, I guess, but it has to be big enough for me to, like, maneuver in and out and.
Because 30 by 40 is pretty big, right? That's pretty big.
And it's like tucked in the back corner of my lot, I have
Yeah.
trees all around, we have perimeter, so like no one, and like I said, it's a walkout, you can't even see it from the road. It won't bother anyone at all, and there's nobody behind us, this is a field, so.
Are you planning on putting plumbing in there?
No.
And probably just on a concrete slab then, or
I'm actually
not
going
even
to
just
put
gravel?
concrete, I'm putting on gravel for now,
Okay.
it's just to park the toys. No heat, no nothing.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
That's everything from council? I appreciate it, Mr. Renner, thank you very much.
Super easy. Just have too many toys, that's all.
Yeah.
Sorry, too many boys, too many toys.
Anyone else wanting to make any final comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at 7:21 PM. Do I have a mover? Councilor Belanger, second by Councilor Manchuk, thank you.
Therefore, be resolved that variation application V16-2021 be approved with the following conditions: that the applicant must obtain a building permit from the RM Reachot office for the proposed accessory building. Submitted plans are to be included in the detailed architectural drawings stamped by an engineer. That variation 16-2021 must be approved in order to obtain approval for the building permit. 3, that the accessory building must be used for personal use. 4, that drainage shall not affect any neighboring properties. And 5, that any outdoor lighting must be located, arranged, or shielded so that no light is directed at any neighboring property or roadway.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open up for council discussion. Council?
Well, as I mentioned, it's always a difficult thing to, you know, great to have toys. I love to have toys. And you want a place secure to store them. It's logical. Everything you want to do is logical. But it's against our bylaws. That's the big conundrum. So.
I appreciate that. Council, anything else?
I have a hard time considering that the pergola is counted towards their total on this. The pool house is actually only 300 square feet, then the rest is pergola. I don't see why that's rated as being counted towards his total, and that brings his number down significantly.
Do we have a map of the actual home here? I mean, obviously first.
Well, that's a good point. It's almost like a covered deck, and we've already established that decks aren't counted, right? In the square footage of accessory uses on your yard. And swimming pools aren't, we established that, so.
I think for building permit purposes, the pergola is counted as square footage. And as such, we counted it as square footage for
Right.
this application.
Okay. It's a valid point, though, Councilor Pelcher. Anything else from council?
I had some concerns with noise at first, but it sounds like it is just gonna be a garage for storage. It's not gonna have a second story and a business or loud bands playing in there, I'm not sure. There was also the issue I was thinking of creating a second driveway there, but it sounds like that'll be eliminated and the access will be from the main driveway, so those were two of my concerns.
Anything else? Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None? It's carried. And 6.1.2, V17-2021, Jonker, 332 Pack Place, Grand Point.
The application is to vary the east side yard from 15 feet to 10 feet and the rear yard from 15 feet to 10 feet in a rural residential zone for the purpose of a shed on the property. Notices were sent out according to the Planning Act, and council have a copy of the site plan as well as a few pictures that are attached.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing at 7:25 PM. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in favor? Anyone on the phone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in person wishing to speak in favor? Come on up, sir.
Evening, thanks for having me. So we started putting up a shed. I wasn't aware that a permit was required initially, so my oversight, sorry about that. And Louis also stopped by and pointed out that we're rural residential, which requires a setback of 15 feet, not the 10 feet like other residential properties in this municipality. So just an oversight on my behalf. We're looking to vary it from 15 feet to 10 feet on the side and the back of the shed. It can't be moved to the side. Our septic field is right there, so it can't be moved further than 10 feet away from the property line. If necessary, we can move it 15 feet from the back property line, if that's a concession that needs to be made.
Okay, appreciate that. Council, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a.
Sorry, I'll get you to stay there. Councilor Boyle, you have a question.
Just in discussions with Louis and back and forth on this, the history of it, it sounds like you did do some research and trying to see if you needed a building permit and setbacks and all that, so we appreciate that you looked into it. Unfortunately, I guess you just looked in the wrong section.
Yeah, I totally did, for sure.
Your yard is quite large. Have you considered putting it on the west side of your yard by your play structure? Like, why did you choose this particular location?
This place is tucked away, by the play structure, there's like a plan for a bit of a putting green and a golf green back there. This side of the, yard has, just access from a front, just a culvert or an access from the road, so if I have to drive, anything in there or do work back there, it's possible to do that, and it's not possible on the other side.
Like through the ditch, you mean?
Yeah,
Directly
well,
off of that?
there's a culvert there, right by the stop sign, so it's just easier access, it's just a logical placement on the property.
Okay. And are you, like, I know you're at the new house and you're just developing your yard and everything, so things take time. Are you planning on treeing that lot line or putting a fence up or anything?
Yeah, so we plan to, tree all the way around the property.
Because it's right in your face.
Yeah.
You drive over that, you're like, whoa, there's a shed.
Yeah.
So if it was trees and sheltered, I think that would be
That's the plan, for sure. Yeah, right now it looks like it's in the middle of nowhere, but once it's developed, it'll be.
And it's, from what I see, it looks like it's on skids, on a gravel pad.
It's on a gravel pad on, treated, joists. Not on skids.
So if you had to move it, like you're saying, from the back property line, you could move it, but I understand your field is to the west of it, so you can't go that way, but if nobody wanted it there, could it be moved on your west side of your septic field?
I'm not sure that's where I would put it. In
Okay.
theory, it can be moved. It's a shed. I mean,
Okay.
machinery to pick it up and move it. That's a possibility. If it had to be moved, I'm not sure where I would put it on my property.
Okay. Okay, yeah, there's lots of places. All right, thank you.
Anything else from council? Thanks, sir, I appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor in person? Anything received in favor?
Nothing received.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak against online? Anyone wishing to speak against on the phone? Anyone wishing to speak against in person? Anything received?
Nothing
Against?
received.
Okay, anyone wishing to make any final comments in favor, against, or general comments or questions online or on the phone? In person? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at 7:29 PM. Do I have a mover? Councilor Pelletier, second by Councilor Clayton.
Therefore, be resolved that variation application V17-2021 be approved with the following conditions. One, that the applicant must obtain a building permit for the shed from the R. Richard office. And two, that variation 17-2021 must be approved to obtain that building permit of approval for the proposed location of the shed.
Thank you. I'll open up for council discussion. Council, do you have any comments or debate?
Well, just what I kind of said, it's too bad that, he didn't look at the right section to see what the rules were, and if it would have come through as a building permit and a variation, I think we would have a good discussion about possibly requesting that he's located in another location.
It's your area, Councillor.
Yeah, it's an after the fact, it's, you know, I don't know, it's tough.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else from council? Okay, council, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried 4-1. Councillor Belanger is against. Thank you. 6.1.3 V8 2021 Rogers Communication, Inc., 1489 Halima Drive.
As well as conditional use.
Oh, sorry, as well as conditional use C33 2021 Rogers Communications Tower at 1489 Halima Drive in Grand Point.
Correct, thank you. The variation is to allow the height of a telecommunication tower from 49.9 feet to approximately 98.4 feet, as well as the conditional use is to allow an approximately 30-meter telecom tower in a commercial general zone. Notices have been sent out as per the Planning Act, and council has a few site plans as well as public notification packages that were sent on behalf of Rogers Communications.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing for both the V18 and C33 at 7:32 p.m. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in favor? Anyone on the phone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in person wishing to speak in favor? Anything received in favor?
Nothing received.
Is there anyone online wishing to speak against? Anyone on the phone wishing to speak against? Anyone in person wishing to speak against? Anything received against?
Nothing received against.
I will give it a final call. Anyone wishing to make any general comments or speak in favor or against online or on the phone? And final call, anyone in person wishing to make any comments in favor or against, or general questions. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at 7:33 p.m. Do I have to move both of these?
We will deal with V18.
Okay, so I'll ask for a mover for V18. Councillor Mamchuk, second. Councillor Belanger, thank you.
V18, variation 18. Therefore, be resolved that variation application V18 2021 is approved subject to the following conditions: that the applicant must obtain a development permit from the Army Reach Out Office, and 2, that conditional use C33 2021 to allow a communications tower must be approved.
Thank you. Open up for council discussion. Council, do you have anything to add?
No.
No. Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None. That's carried. Now I'll ask for 6.2.1 mover for C33. Councillor Clayton, second by Councillor Mamchuk.
Therefore, be resolved that conditional use application C33 2021 is approved subject to the following conditions. 1, if yard lighting is to be used, the applicant shall ensure that the lighting levels do not cause any disruption or becomes a nuisance to the neighboring area or affected roadways. 2, any tower of high-density strobe lighting shall be only used during the daylight hours and red light tower marker during the evening so as to not create a nuisance for neighboring properties. 3, the applicant shall maintain the site and surrounding area in an orderly fashion so it does not become unsightly. 4, the applicant shall ensure that any proposed buildings be constructed conform to all applicable building codes, fire codes, health standards, and any other municipal and/or provincial permits and approvals as may be required. 5, signage shall conform to Part 11 of the municipal zoning bylaw. 6, that the applicant shall obtain a development permit from the Arden Breachout providing construction drawings which will include engineered stamps. 7, that the applicant obtains a variation to vary the maximum height of 49 feet to 98.4 feet. And 8, the applicant shall provide a signed confirmation letter accepting the terms of the order, and there may be site audits conducted to ensure compliance, and non-compliance issues may be cause to revoke the conditional use at any time.
Thank you. I'll open up for council discussion and final comments, questions, debate, council. Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None. That's carried. Item 6 point, council's okay to continue. Michelle, you're good to continue. 6.3.1, 4165-21-8065, Shingle Properties, 10 residential lots in Grand Point.
As a result of a subdivision, 10-lot subdivision, creating a new road under section 125(2) of the Planning Act, a public hearing is required in regards to the proposed subdivision. I'll just read for the audience and council what 125(2) means, hearing when road created. If the proposed subdivision will result in the creation of a new public road, the council must A, hold a public hearing to receive representations on the proposed subdivision, and B, give notice according to section 169 regarding the public hearing. And that was done accordingly. And the subdivision is subdivision number 4165-21-8065.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing at 7:37 p.m. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in favor? Anyone on the phone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in person wishing to speak in favor? Come on up, sir.
Good evening. So, my name is Alan Klippenstein. I'm Director of Real Estate Development with Shingle Properties. So just one thing I wanted to, or a couple of things I just wanted to talk about this development here, was just kind of how the creation of it came along. I know that when we first approved it, it went through a couple iterations. We had to go through a couple different iterations to get to where this is right here. And the one thing that we were really excited about, but after speaking with Mitch there, we decided to change the plan, was the pond that's in the property there. It's a pretty large pond. We kind of looked at it as a really nice feature, but just due to public health concerns, we decided that we're going to fill it in. So we've been canvassing the area to try to find fill, and we're going to slowly get that thing filled in. So before those lots would be sold, we'll fill that thing in, we'll pack it up, it'll be gone. One of the I did get a phone call from somebody today. I'm not sure if that person's in the audience here or not today, but they had a concern about the wells in the area, and just how they were concerned with the amount of water and how this subdivision would impact that. So I ended up speaking with Justin Neufeld, who's a groundwater geologist with Friesen Drillers, just to see if he had any comments about this, because they have done a lot of well drilling in the area. So his comments, without doing an extensive study, was this, and if you find that I can kind of read the statement.
Sure.
So he said, groundwater supplies around your proposed site in Grand Point are typically developed in the carbonate aquifer, which is a very large feature that extends under most of the southeast Manitoba and up through the Interlake region. Many thousands of domestic wells are completed into this aquifer, and based on this aquifer alone, the addition of 10 domestic wells would not be expected to have a significant impact on groundwater availability in the region. So I just wanted to make sure that if this subdivision does go ahead, based on the concerns that were brought ahead, that we're not negatively impacting the area. Based on what the geologist here said, it would appear that it won't have a big impact. That being said, we're hoping that you vote in favor with this. I think community planning came back with their report in favor of this development. We do have a track record of 2 other developments within this area. We're quite proud of those 2 developments, and we feel that we would bring the same quality work to this development as well.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Alan. Council, do you have any questions for us then?
Nothing.
No.
I just have a comment about the wells. I've been, probably the same person that called you has called me frequently about that. And I brought it up in our planning to see if we could get a study done in Grand Point, just to see, because these little pocket developments are starting to come up. And I believe we discussed the possibility of doing a small study of some sort to, it wouldn't cost $30,000 or $40,000 or anything like that. It would be a small study just to kind of check on what is there. So anything like that is appreciated, and hopefully.
Would that be, if that report is going to look at other areas, would that be something that the RM would want to do in collaboration with us?
It's definitely an opportunity. I think we can discuss it, planning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I know some other residents are quite concerned with the older, long-term residents that are there. They're like, our wells are being sucked dry with all these new developments. And so we'd just like to put those
And
concerns
some of
to
that,
rest,
the one thing I did speak to Justin on the phone here today, and so he said that there is a lot of variability in this area, just based on, and I don't know how all this works, but you can go anywhere from needing a 100-foot well to a 300-foot well, just from property to property. And sometimes there might be water there, you just need to lower your pump. There's a lot of variability with that.
Sure. I know my neighbors at 60, I'm at 240, I'm like, oh, man. But we have good water.
Right,
So.
yeah.
That's all.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Alan, I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
I don't think from council.
No, not from council.
No, we'll go around the table.
Okay.
We'll go around there. No, I appreciate it. That's good for now. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In person? Anything received in favor?
Nothing received?
Is there anyone wishing to speak against online? Anyone wishing to speak against on the phone? Anyone yes, on the phone?
Somebody's got the microphone.
Okay, if someone has their microphone on, feel free to just say your name and go ahead and speak. False alarm.
Still unmuted.
Do you have their name, Ken?
Jazz Pander?
Jazz Pander, are you there?
How about we mute that and see if you get the,
Oh, here you go.
our first technical issue of the night, folks. Welcome.
It doesn't show that they're speaking on the screen, so
The red,
you want to mute it?
yeah, mute that.
Interesting.
Taylor message. He said, call me, I can put you on speaker. Hello? Not sure if I'm being heard, but I can't hear you guys.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Perfect. Say, just say your name for the record, please, sir.
Yeah, Verinder Paul Pander.
Thank you, and go ahead.
So I'm at, sorry about the technical difficulties here. That is also another related question I have, but we're at 1963 Shady Lane, directly beside the new development. And I'd kind of reflect the same concerns you guys were just touching on there regarding the water supply, just because I've heard some of our neighbors on the other side of the river in the Grand are having water supply issues, both just basic needs like watering the lawn or garden. I know some of the riverfront lots have been pulling up water from the river to establish their lawns. So I think as someone noted there, maybe a study, if possible, could be done to see. And I do understand the variability of the wells and that sort of stuff, but in such a small area, not really much road area, it's going to be. It seems like it'll be definitely a more significant draw, of course, than what we're experiencing, especially with the older houses on the side.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment for sure. I think Councillor Belanger definitely will advocate for that.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I would definitely want to get a study going, because it's not the first time we've heard this, so.
Any other comments?
Another comment back to the relating to the water, I guess, is and I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the area, but our property is actually significantly built up, and it's actually the reason that pond that's being filled is there, I guess, from what I understand. It was dug out to build it up. So I'm just slightly concerned as to the new homeowners being worried or complaints, I guess, in the future of runoff coming like off of our property, just because it's already built up. It's been that way for the last 18 years we've been here. So I guess that's not so much a building concern or a development concern, but a future neighbor concern.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. Does anyone on council want to make a comment on that?
Is it the drainage you're concerned about with your property, like between the properties?
Yeah, not per se. I'm not concerned about it because it's been this way, like I said, since the 18 years we've been here. But I'm just concerned that down the road we have people move in and then it's like, well, you know, your guys' water is running off on my side or my side's wet. Like that field there has always been basically a swamp essentially with a lot of the you can hear them at night too. Lots of frogs and that's in there. So that's not really something that is.
Sorry, say that again. I think we just lost connection with you.
Wet in that's going to change, like I said, with the development, but it may be a concern. I'm concerned.
You're breaking up very, very bad.
That's his internet.
Your third question about the internet service in Grand Point.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Still unmuted.
Well, if you can hear us, I was just gonna comment on, you know, we always ask for a drainage plan with the developer to make sure everything is going to drain without affecting neighboring properties, so that would be looked at in the development stage. Is that correct, Mr. CEO?
Correct. I think his concern was his water shedding onto that property.
Mhm. So whether they're gonna be built up enough to stay out of his water. That's a good point.
Okay, we'll, hopefully we can get back to you, sir, if you can hear us. But we will continue on with the public hearing. Just jump in as soon as you have an opportunity to. And if your service does end up working again, where was I? Online again? Online. Is there anyone else online or on the phone wishing to speak against? He left, he's gonna probably try and log back in here. Anyone in person wishing to speak against? Come on up, sir.
Hi, I'm Ron Vulcan. I'm not opposed to the development that's gonna happen anyways. You look around, you know that it's gonna happen. So, just some concerns of how this is gonna.
Okay.
Just give us 2 minutes there, Mr. Juspander. 2 minutes there, Mr. Juspander. We're just dealing with another delegate. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I feel that this area will be developed and that's evolution that's gonna happen. It's just, some concerns I have, like the
Okay,
grand.
I was just saying, I feel like it's not really a concern
Yeah, you're still breaking up significantly, Mr. Juspander.
of construction or a new development. I feel like it's a concern, it's a potential concern from the new property owners. I'm not concerned.
Can you text in the box there?
Send his comments in the chat.
Yeah. Say we're having a hard time with the connection. Leave your comments or questions in the message box and I'll read them out.
We'll text them.
You know?
Okay.
You got all those cities.
I don't see him even being
Oh.
on.
He might have called in. Or maybe it was an after event, like it just kind of shot up in service. You guys will send a message, thank you. Okay, continue on, sir.
Okay, so, like the Grand has a walkway along the river, and I see that you have a proposed public reserve. Is that what that's for, or is that your intention, or do you know the intention? Will there be anything like that?
We can ask that question to the developer on the second go around.
Okay. I mean, because when I do look at, the other question that goes hand in hand with that is, will these be connected, or will there be any walkways across the creeks, or any connections in the future, or where they might be, that kind of stuff? So I'm curious about that, and I also, I mean, where some of that you have, it's literally on the riverbank. There's also a road and a dead-end gate, off of Burnett. And when I look at this drawing, like the proposed, public reserve is literally the riverbank, like, which I find, I would assume that it would have been that road. Like, is that not municipal property, or is that part of the developer's property? You know which road I'm talking about, right? It's not a road, but it's like it used to be a road, so to speak. And there's a gate at the end of it on Burnett Road. Right by the bridge. Right, yeah.
It's almost like a driveway into
It makes sense for it to be a walkway, but it's showing here that this is the property, the proposed, that's gonna be someone's property. And based on this drawing, if you look at that road, you can see that your public, reserve is literally the riverbank.
Okay.
Which doesn't really make sense, and that's probably, are they proposing having a walkway around these 2 acres because you've got a creek in between them? And then is there gonna be another walkway around the other 7 lots? Like I'm just wondering how it's gonna be laid out here.
Okay, we can ask that question.
And then the other thing too was, I'm looking at lot, 4, 5, 8, and 9. And, I'm just wondering how much tree loss there will be. You know what I mean? And then, like, you have people today, like, it's fine if they put a house in there, then they're allowed to have on 2 acres, 2,400 outbuilding square footage, that kind of thing. Like, are those things being considered? I mean, the other reason why too is, like, I'm not a massive tree hugger, but at the same point, that's why everyone's there, because it's so nice, and I'm just wondering how it's gonna be developed. You know, because even your pamphlet you guys said a while back ago on the heritage of Grand Point and what it all meant, and it was the great trees and river that came to a point. So I'm just trying to preserve this. I mean, this is your job, your guys' job, to make sure this all get preserved and done right. And I do believe in development, and something should go in there, but I'm just concerned that there'll be nothing left in there, it's overpopulated. I mean, I've walked in there, and I mean, you guys have done your surveying, I haven't, but I have an idea, I know what the lay of the land is in there, and I mean, some of the lots are right down to that creek where I don't know how much mud they'd have to bring in just to develop it, depending on where they choose to develop in there. So my concern is them coming right in the back and cutting trees out, and you're destroying what everyone loves to look at, and the reason why they're there.
Okay, I appreciate that. I will, ask that question on the second go around as well. Anything else?
I think that's it. I mean, they brought up the water thing, because that was another concern I have, and it's not so much, I'm fortunate enough, my well's 260 feet, but there are the people that it would become a problem that do have the 60-foot wells, and that should be proven that they're gonna be okay. You know, I mean, either way, I do believe that this should be developed, or at one point it will be. It's just, how we do it and how many we do in there.
Do you have any, does council have any questions? Comments? No? Okay, thank you, no, I appreciate your time. Is there anyone else wishing to speak against in person? Did you get a hold of your Shady Lane friends?
He said he's having technical difficulties, yeah, I mean, I can maybe speak on behalf of.
Sure, if you wanna come.
Sure, we're not, against it by any means, and in fact, Jazz Pander.
Sorry, I just need your name.
My name's Taylor Young, I'm 1999 Shady Lane, so I'm the dead end of Shady Lane on the river. And, 1996, I recently subdivided, Solely's building there right now, and Pander is right in front of him. So we're the entire Shady Lane adjacent lot to the development, right? And I don't think any of us are against it, we just have a few, concerns that I think will be easily overcome. One is we built there for trees, right, similar to the last concerns, right? And, we've been there for X amount of years, some 10 years, some 1 year, some 6 months. And the reason we went there was for the trees. So I think all the adjacent properties are very concerned as to the development. In fact, we would buy them all from you right now, just so that we could build our friends there. And it was me that called to try and buy that lot. And we're all for it. We want to make sure that there's trees, a buffer down the middle. And I think part of that ties into the drainage. We're hoping that we don't need to do a ditch between the properties, because that's going to take out 10 feet of trees right behind, like, you know, Sebastian's deck is on the line where it's supposed to be from his lot. And if the guy does the same thing, well, you only have 30 feet of trees between, right? And if you put a 10-foot ditch there. So I think we're all on board. I think the walking trail isn't really on the developer, if I'm correct. It's on the RM and what they decide to do. But, so the question, the concern he had was not really on the developer, as far as I know. Pander's concern was his elevation. All his water right now goes into the hole they're gonna fill in. So one thing would be the drainage there. But again, I think he would be number one on the list to buy that lot if he was offered it, and then there would be no problem. So, I might wanna consider that. But, that's what I think his comments were, to speak on behalf of him, so.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Sorry, council, do you have any questions, comments? No, thank you.
Oh, just comment about the trail. I know that it's in the well, we can ask the developer,
Yeah.
because I know it was part of Grand Development and part of Deer Ridge. It was part of those developments. So they developed the trail, and then they turn it over to the RM once it's complete for maintenance.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Councilor Boulanger. I'll keep going, and then we'll do second round. Anyone else wishing to speak against in person? Anything received against?
Nothing received against.
Okay, I'll do it one last call online. Anyone wishing to make any general comments or questions they may have, not necessarily for or against, online or on the phone? And same goes for in person. Yeah, come on up, sir.
Sebastian Putski, I'm at 1996 Shady Lane. So regarding the wells, I just drilled my well adjacent to that development, and I was at 238. with only 12 gallons per minute. So it's not pretty substantial flow rate. So, yeah, study would be great. Like Taylor mentioned, the watershedding and all the types of ditching that the Grand sort of has, the Grand Park definitely has. So again, if we're doing ditching around every single property, that clear cuts quite a bit of trees out of there. The pond is infill, I mean, I get it, it makes sense, but I'm sure that the next owner would pretty well hope that it's packed to at least a 99% compaction for the rebuild. And then in general, just keeping it looking like what it looks like now. I mean, like the other gentleman mentioned, it's inevitable, it's gonna happen. I mean, I started it, I clear cut a whole bunch of trees myself, but limited to just around my house. I didn't go and clear cut the whole lot, so it would be something very similar that I would hope everyone else would do.
I appreciate that.
I just have a couple comments.
Sure.
I wish I had 12 gallons per minute. I'm at 235 and I'm at 7. So it's always been good, it hasn't been a problem. I'm not just disputing it or anything, I'm just saying that we do want to get a study done. And yeah, I would like to see the trees preserved as well, but the pond, there's several ponds, and you may or may not know the history behind these ponds in Ground Point. It was all from the flood. They're called borrow pits. They're, in my opinion, just an accident waiting to happen, because a lot of them have bulrushes around them, you can't even see them. Kid goes on a dirt bike and flies through it and never to be seen again. It hasn't happened, thank goodness. Like, I would like every borrow pit in Ground Point to be filled. I've kind of mentioned that a few times, but it's not really on our radar, but this is an opportunity because we don't want neighbors to be sharing a hole in the ground. So that's kind of the whole reason behind filling it up.
I think filling it in makes sense.
Yeah.
Has to be
Do it properly, yeah.
Has to be the right.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make any general comments in favor or against? Come on up, sir.
So I happen to be here for my shed, but I've heard all the conversation about wells. I'm one of the owners of Southern Comfort Mechanical. We primarily focus on geothermal installation, do a lot of water well drilling, and I'm hearing a lot of concern about wells. From our perspective, a well, we deal with a lot of freezing drillers as well. Wells generally, they're impacted by the geology right around that hole. So yours is down to 230 feet, you're getting 12 gallons a minute, you're getting 7 gallons per minute. It's much less impacted by somebody 200-300 feet away. With geothermal wells, if we're drilling 200-300 feet away, there's minimal impact. So I'd say a study would be easy to do. You can do a drawdown in a well that's close by. You run it for 12 hours, you determine the drawdown in another well. I would expect minimal impact and minimal concern. It's a natural concern from homeowners, but from our professional standpoint, 10 residential wells in an area that size is going to be minimal impact.
I appreciate that comment.
Yeah.
Thank you. You can stay for the rest of the meeting.
Yeah.
Anyone else wishing to make any general comments, speak in favor or against, or does the developer representative want to answer some of the questions that were asked?
Yeah, sure.
Come on. Did you write them down, Alan? Or no?
Oh, let's see, how good my notes are here.
Let's start with talking about public reserves.
Yeah, so I don't think a development agreement has been, there is no development agreement at this point. So at this point, this, public reserve was set as a public reserve because it was part of, I guess, the secondary plan. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but that was dedicated for that reason. That's why it's been set apart on the plan. One of the comments here was, are these paths going to connect across the river? No, there's no intention to have a drawbridge or a swinging line or anything like that. So, what happens with this public reserve, I guess we'll figure that out with the development agreement, but, I wouldn't imagine that it would be, if anything does become of that, I don't imagine it would be anything different than what's in the Grand at this point.
Okay.
Tree lots. Tree lots, so that is the appeal of these lots for sure. When we go in as the developer, we put in the infrastructure being the road, the ditches, and any kind of drainage plan with that. So we wouldn't go in there, you know, as a developer wanting to sell these lots, the more trees, the better. That's typically the appeal of the lots. So we would expect that most people that would buy these lots wouldn't want to cut down the trees because, you know, they're appreciative of that. Again, though, we have no idea who, you know, what is being built on these sites, and that would go through the development and new building permit process at that time. Ditching, yeah, so every development has to balance the pre and post flow drainage. So once the development is approved, we'll procure an engineer, and they'll figure out, you know, all the elevations, the slopes, and figure out what needs to happen to be able to balance that. Because that is a requirement from the province, is that the pre and the post must match. So I don't have any concerns about this development shedding more than what is allowed to onto other people's property, as per Jazz Panhandler's property there. I don't know. I'm not sure if there was ever, when the house was built up, if that was ever looked at. So it would be something that our engineer would probably look at when they're doing that. The results of that, I'm not sure. I mean, if the water's shedding like crazy on there, then something will have to happen for sure.
Okay. Am I missing anything? Walking trail would be part of the development plan.
The Borough Pit was the other one. So, yeah, so clearly we're not just pushing dirt into the hole here and just gonna let it settle. This would be part of our tender process when we get the road built, is we're collecting fill now. We would expect that, and part of the tender would be that the civil trade would go in there and pack that all down. Even once that thing is packed down, it's still never great to build on a hole. So we would recommend to the owners of lots 1 and 2 there, we would show them this plan and recommend they build their house offset of that.
Okay. And tree buffer? I wrote that down. I think we discussed the public reserves and the trees, the ditching.
Would the ditching be sent out as like a proposed ditching plan?
No, that would likely be through the engineering plan, and the engineering plan typically doesn't require a public hearing or anything like that.
Thank you. Council, did you have any other questions or comments?
No, just to make it clear, the, public reserve between lots 9 and lots 8 and 7, that natural creek that's going through there, from what I'm gathering, there's no real plan for that. It's just a public reserve to reserve the trees and that.
Yeah, it would be, it's a little funny if you've ever been on that lot before. It's not really a creek, it's more of a swamp. It's not a pretty swamp. We would love nothing more for you guys to remove that from the plan here, but we're fine keeping it. But yeah, the public reserve there would preserve all those trees in that area.
Okay. Anything else from council? Okay, appreciate it. Thanks, sir. Any final comments from anyone? Come on up, sir.
So just on the reserve part, like, it is riverbank, there's nothing to preserve there. So I'm finding it hard to understand how you, approve the lot, but yet you don't know how it's gonna be drained, or potentially where these walkways. It'd be nice to know upfront what we're getting or what we're saying yes to. That's all I'm trying to figure out, where the walkways are gonna go, or what for sure is gonna be proposed to the developer. It'd be nice for us to know what we're saying yes to, that's all. And again, you have those properties with the trees, I know he's explaining, that, most people are buying from, but you take those lots, depending where your septic field and where your well can be situated based on those property lines, and whether, from a 2,000 to 4,000 square foot home and you're outbuilding it potentially, like, still concerned with the amount of trees or how it's gonna be managed that we preserve that.
I appreciate that, bless you. It's the unfortunate reality of how the province has created the municipal act and how we have to do our
processing. So,
Yeah.
we have to go through the motions as such as we are doing now, and then the development plan comes in and the engineering plan comes in after the fact of the subdivision creation. So that's just how it is. That's,
Okay.
yeah.
No problem.
But at that point, we take into consideration all your concerns and we try to work them into the development plan, knowing what your concerns are, because we don't take these things lightly, like, that would definitely be,
Yeah, I
so
appreciate
it's great that you're giving us these concerns, because now we can, when we're reviewing the development plan, we'll,
Like, I think you answered the question. I know you had walkways written down, but, between lots, the 7 on one side and 2, is there individual plans? Would there be plans for those walkways to be there or not? Just curious.
in between which lots, Ron?
Like, well, there's, I guess it is that swamp kind of, but it is divided, so I just, didn't know if there's gonna be individual walkways through both the 2 lots on one side, the, 8 and, apartment 9 and 10, and then separately through, most likely be from 4 to 8. Like, I just curious if those are things you guys are talking about, or
Is it something that you would like to see? Because the counselor could definitely bring it to the attention of the development plan if that's something you'd like.
yeah, sure, then you know what how much traffic you're gonna have in your area. I'm across the lake, across the creek. And, I don't know if it's gonna be people parking at the park and it'll be solid people walking by or, for my own personal reasons. But I mean, we also spend a lot of money being that lot to preserve that kind of stuff. That's my concern. That's no different than these guys, same thing. And I mean, he talked about the runoff that they have to manage, if that is ditching, or whether that's culverts that go in between properties to the creek that maintain that they're not cutting all this stuff down.
Mr. Balkan, how many trees in your lot?
That I planted, I know them all by name.
Well, you keep talking about trees, and I've paddled that river a lot of times. You have no trees.
I've got lots of trees, I don't have enough.
How many were there when you moved in?
None,
Empty
there was
lot.
none.
Who cleared them up?
I have no idea. Well, there was a farm there before me, farm lot there.
Okay.
That wasn't me, trust me.
And I can attest to that,
I
it
can
was a
promise you
bad
that.
one. Yeah.
Janine cleared them all up.
I cleared them, they're in my yard.
I know all my trees by name. It's, no, they're, and I've even buried a couple, so yeah, no, I have more of an appreciation for trees and natural stuff now than I did when I bought the lot, because to develop it, it's a shitload, it's a lot of work, so, yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to, last call. Okay, I'll close the public hearing at 8:13 PM. Do I have a mover? Councillor Manchuk, second by Councillor Boulanger.
Therefore, be resolved that council approves the subdivision file number 4165-21-8002, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the applicant must enter into a development agreement with the municipality of Richard. And 2, that those lots that with a side width of less than 200 feet require variation in order to vary the site requirements of the RR zone and our zoning bylaw 9-2019 as amended.
Thank you. I'll open up for council debate discussion. Council, do you have anything to add?
No, I just think we really need to pay attention when it comes to the development agreement on this one, if we can all wrap our heads around it. Take all these considerations, all these points into consideration. The pathways are a little confusing in the area. We've got a beautiful one going through the Grand and one that's gonna continue into Deer Ridge. But they're kind of pathways to nowhere. To link another path on the other side doesn't make sense unless we build a bridge that we just built one in St. Pierre, the bridge has cost $250,000. I can't see that happening. So we might have all these little pathways that go nowhere. So things like that, I'd like to be in the discussions on the planning of this property.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. Anyone else from council?
I think as it stands, the new road going in won't take out a lot of trees, just where it's set up.
Most of it'll be cleared for houses and yards. I think there's still a lot of bush line there that, hopefully we can keep it, a lot of it intact.
I know in the Grand, and maybe I should, it's okay, I don't need to get this answered, but I know in the Grand, there was a lot of restrictions or, building guidelines that the homeowners had to follow. Maybe we can see if some of those can be put into this, I don't know if that's in our power to do that, but to preserve as many trees.
Yeah, that's an opportunity. Okay, anything else from council? No, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None, that's carried. Thank you. Is that the public hearings for the evening? Yes? Yes. Everyone can leave.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have a delegation.
We do have a delegation. We will jump right to. And then, we will do business as usual. We'll go to the delegation for 7:30 PM. Item 7, Mr. Paul Clifton.
Thank you. Just before I start, I'm hoping that, it's not per 10 minutes, as far as the presentation goes. It might be 10 or 12.
I'll let that slide.
We cleared the room for you.
The purpose that I come here is to petition the R and Show to consider forming a committee, and a committee to do with existing and past and future problems with the operation and the existence and operation of Red River Floodway. And it's exclusively for the protection of the city of Winnipeg and to the detriment of all the residents of Reshaw. I petitioned to the federal government, to the provincial government over many, many years about this, and I have before council representation in a book form, and it's very expensive, and it's all electronic. I'm not going to go into every detail of every item here, but I want council to be considering things like in northern Manitoba, South Indian Lake was flooded by Manitoba Hydro. And over time, transport trucks got a lot larger than what they were when they first flooded South Indian Lake. And they realized that with 53-foot tractor trailer trailers, the infrastructure in South Indian Lake was insufficient to stand up to all this heavy traffic. And so the Department of Highways and Transportation undertook an upgrade of the entire community of South Indian Lake. And it was paid for under the table or across the table by Manitoba Hydro. So Highways and Transportation had the work done, but it was funded completely by Manitoba Hydro. And if folks in our Reshaw are familiar with the northern end, very northern end, the floodway control structure. The floodway control structure is on Crauchane Boulevard, or Crauchane Road, sorry. And there's a line, it's a new line, it went up last year. And it's a 500,000 volt line. That's an express line from Dorsey to Iron Range, Minnesota. And they derive tens of millions of dollars of revenue from Minnesota to Manitoba Hydro for having turned turbines to make power, to be able to export power to the U.S. We can push power uphill. We can't push the Red River uphill. And so there's a real problem, but there's also a real benefit that when there's a flood, there's lots of water. And that water is managed by Manitoba Hydro through the entire province of Manitoba, through many generating stations. And I'm thinking in the range of $30 million US a year into perpetuity, that we have an agreement that they would siphon this $30 million US, because we're exporting to US dollars, we're receiving US dollars, which shouldn't be discounted. That should be into a committee headed by this municipality to be able to divvy on an annual basis outstanding grievances and difficulties for many years past and into the future, so that there aren't people arguing about compensation 10, 12 years after the fact. That's the truth with Lake Manitoba flooding, that there's people still arguing 8 years since that flood, about compensation. And it was bad. Compensation process in 1997 and beyond was very bad. And we don't ever want to go that route again. So I'll just go through my presentation, and I'm just going to touch on highlights of the points, and then I'll take, I don't know if there's any questions coming back to me.
Council can ask questions.
Strictly delegation.
It's a delegation, the council is more than welcome to ask questions.
Yeah. Okay. Let me get my phone straight here. Okay. This representation was made on June 22nd, 2005, before the screening on the Red River Floodway expansion. The deadline for submission was the 22nd of June, and I made representation to Jerry Tessier. On the 22nd of 2005. I provide an executive summary of issues reviewed by the federal screening report on the reference project. Because of time limitations and record of 44 Privy Council records received yesterday, my comments will be brief, though electronic records extensive, insightful, and damning for both Manitoba and Canada. This as it relates to construction of past flood protection projects with federal funds without proper Canadian Environmental Assessment Act assessments, federal, provincial, and municipal breach of trust, and breach of the Canadian Constitution. This requires an arm's length relationship for municipalities, federal affairs, and no two-party funding arrangements. As well, Manitoba, under a clandestine funding arrangement, willfully or inadvertently, and is to be determined for the construction of Class 3 development under the Manitoba Environmental Act. This without environmental assessment and licensing in advance of the project. So I'm saying to you that the floodway expansion was started early and done without federal approval. And that's contrary to the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act. There's a cover letter here from Paul Clifton to Dorothy Latimer as a letter of thanks. Dorothy, I think we've seen it through the trials of 1996 and hopefully on to better prospects ahead. From the extreme long winter and excessive snow, late spring, and excessive runoff in the Red River Valley, I think we've seen it all. It's because of your unselfish efforts to assist us during the sandbagging operation that this card of thanks goes out. Please accept this card, though late, as a thank you for your assistance during the flood of 1996. This is a letter from Clifton to Prime Minister Martin and Premier Dewar. It was dated May 30th, 2005, and in the last paragraph in this letter that I sent to the Prime Minister and to the Premier, copy to the Governor General, and copy to the RCP. Because there is currently a complaint with the Commanding Officer of D Division of RCP, it is a critical issue. Copy of this letter is attached and is forwarded to review on this matter. I made a complaint to the RCP about flood protection for the city of Winnipeg and underhanded works that went on. Under the Access to Information Act, you can't get records that are Privy Council or Cabinet records, but the RCP can certainly get records. And that was my avenue to find out what's gone on here and to try and determine how we move forward from that. The Royal Commission on Flood Cost Benefit, 1958, talked about the baseline conditions. The existing floodway baseline elevations for design has been grievously misrepresented by the co-proponents, the Manitoba Floodway Expansion Authority and the Provincial Water Branch. The 1958 Royal Commission on Flood Cost Benefit set the upstream level for flood protection at 768.0 feet above sea level, plus 3 feet of extra on top of that for a significant flood of record, where they could top up the primary dikes in the city of Winnipeg, and they can flood protect for a higher level. The floodway control structure, the inlet elevation of the wing walls, those are the concrete walls that brace the structure against the clay, they're set at 771.00. That wasn't an engineering fluke that they got that to 771. That's there because it's designed to that elevation. The task force, the International Joint Commission that studied the Red River flooding in 1997, in December 1999 issued a report saying the baseline condition is 771.25, which is just slightly a little higher than 771. But then in November 2001, the baseline for design was set at 778.0 for emergency operation. That's the baseline condition they use for the design of the expanded floodway. Is 10 feet above what the 1958 report on the flood cost benefit determined. Manitoba Water Commission and IGC recommendations for the program of operation. The Manitoba Water Commission recommendation number 2 and International Joint Commission recommendation number 3 remains to be fully undertaken. This time with full inclusion of stakeholders of the adverse effects of operation of the expanded Red River floodway. Interestingly, Mr. Maurice Sador from Environment Canada responds in an Access to Information Act request that his holdings do not contain any information relating to the following topics contained in the last 3 paragraphs of the requester's information request. So I had made a request. He had responded to that request within his department and say, these areas I did not cover in the review of the operating rules. Economics, consultation with upstream Red River Valley residents, negotiations, or any agreement or discussion on compensation issues. So the Manitoba Environment Canada that sat through 10 meetings on the review of the operating rules did not involve the upstream residents and did not deal with compensation issues. PFRA's breach of trust and breach of Canadian Constitution. I'm going to go to answered records from the provincial government on the Red River Floodway Act, and that's the act that allows through legislation, and it was dated June 7th, 2004, that we saw that the government of Manitoba legislated the right to flood, and they said through the process that there will be no negotiations. So we have a system now in place where they have legislated the right to flood and not consulted with adequately consulted with the residents. And I break in at the very last of my 10-minute allowed presentation, and this is where Madame Chairperson says, Mr. Clifton, I have to just tell you that you have 30 seconds remaining in your presentation. And so I flipped through to the last page of the second brief that I had, and I said, the last page of the second brief is a deal. This is where the director of PFRA bought after the municipality refused to sign off on the operating rules because they were not in the best interest of the Valley residents. The director of PFRA, Mr. Arminio Caligari, circumvented the rights of Canadians in that he reserved the requirement of the federal government to be at arm's length to a province. If monies come to a municipality, these monies come to the municipality from the province, not from the federal government. Mr. Arminio Caligari usurped the rights of citizens of Manitoba by operating rules review approval. Then it says, Mr. Clifton, I'm sorry, we have to conclude. You have time for one last sentence. And I say, we cannot proceed on floodway expansion on lies and deceit. We have $660 million to spend, It might be $1 billion, it might be $1.4 billion, but we're gonna do it right. The record is there. The record is present on the Federal Public Registry and the provincial public registries. You will be unable to license this thing. And then, Madam Chair thanks me for my presentation, and we have questions now by members of the Legislative Assembly. And this is a question by Mr. Calvin Gertz. If you recollect that Mr. Gertz is now the interim premier of this province. A very learned gentleman and well respected by his peers. Thank you very much, Mr. Clifton. You have a very detailed presentation. I look forward to going through it in more detail. Documentation you will provide here is very enlightening. Certainly, Mrs. Talio, and that's Mavis Talio. She was the MLA for Morris, and that includes the RR Richard. Has spoken to me about your knowledge on this issue. We are presently through attending another committee hearing in the legislature. I know she would be very appreciative of being given copies of this brief. And so I, through recognition, have quite an understanding of issues and concerns. And I talk about, in my last closing area here, the Chaser Privy Council Office Records, PCO records. This is under the Access to Information Act, Section 69, and that's where there's Privy Council exemptions, and they're exempted for 30 years. So we've been about 25 years. I have 5 more years to wait before I can get these records that I've been asking for. I don't ask pointed questions from just out of the blue. These are with knowledge-based questions, and over time, and with the extensive assistance of the Information Commissioner of Canada, and he's the adjudicator on complaints under access through the federal system, and diligent efforts, the full story could be deciphered. Manitoba and Canada, through the former Prime Minister, former Premier, Mr. Gary Filmon, and Senior Manitoba Minister, Mr. Lloyd Axworthy, undertook to flood the Upper Red River Valley in 1997, and both governments have attempted over time to shelter records of this action. Subsequently, because of the closeness of the inundation of flood of these two parties together, partnered in the immediate enhancement of Red River floodway works. Essentially, Canada and Manitoba, as early as October 1997, undertook to jointly partner in floodway expansion. So they started on the west side in October of 1997, and it wasn't until 2005 that they actually got through all the environmental processes and came to looking at public representation on the project. In the last 4 pages of this brief, and a final point of business in Manitoba, the former Prime Minister John Chrétien attended Manitoba on October 3rd, 2003. John Chrétien and his wife, he always traveled with his wife, flew from Ottawa to Vancouver with aides. He dropped 2 aides off in Vancouver, did a little bit of campaigning in Vancouver, and they got on the plane and flew back to Winnipeg. And he met with Gary Dewar in the Paramount Hotel, and the Prime Minister of this country advised the Premier of this province to fix the outstanding legal claims for 1997 flood damage reparations. This settlement action, directed by Premier Dewar, has seen the complete carnage of many upstream valley residents who would dare to seek compensation for government-induced upstream flooding. To design, plan, and fund to do it again under lies, deceit, and federal cabinet conferences is unconscionable. So just in closing, there's a whole bunch of work that's been done by very learned people since 1958, when they had the 1950 flood, and they had to study it. It took them 3 years to study it, and they came out with the 1958 report. The 58 report is the basis of what we have for the construction of the floodway, Dust Ditch. And from that, we've expanded Dust Ditch to be wider, not deeper. It was incapable of going deeper. But they went from 768 feet above sea level to 778. That inundates all those residents that had rebuilt and restarted after 1997. There's going to be about 5 or 6 feet of additional water on top of their flood protection level, because we all have a legislative flood protection level, that we have a 2-part building requirement. The first part is to set the foundation of the building and get that surveyed to say that you're tall enough. And then the second part is to have your main floor at a certain level above that. And that's all based on the flood protection level. And any resident in this municipality can call up the provincial water rights and get the flood protection level for their particular property, and they have that on file. And they have actually an amazing set of records, and they know how to flood protect Winnipeg, and I know how they will flood protect Winnipeg in the future. And I think that with the help of a municipal council initiated, a delegation or a committee to strike a committee, and I would offer up my involvement in the committee on a technical basis, based on the knowledge they have historically, and what works, as I said at the start of this, with Manitoba Hydro, fixing lingering problems. And Manitoba Hydro never, to my knowledge, has admitted fault. They've always gone through and listened closely to what the people's issues were, what their people's concerns were, and they came through with programs. And with those programs, there was money involved, there was projects involved, and there was also undertakings to see were these fulfilling the obligations and fulfilling the expectations of the resident. And so by working through a committee, representing to the province, and from the province, establishing a partnership, that we can move this thing along. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate that, Mr. Clifton. Wealth of knowledge and passion for that, and I appreciate listening to that kind of stuff. Did you send this presentation could you send that to our CEO so we could take a look at that, your presentation?
I sent the, if you let's just write this down. It's all small case.
Okay.
My name is Paul. My second name is Edward, so it's P-E.
You did send this. I have this information.
The link is P-E and then bracket, small, Paul in brackets, Clifton. And then, it'll come up as,
I apologize, you did send this, yeah. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Clifton? It's a lot to absorb, but definitely interesting.
I was gonna ask you if you would be obviously willing to be on the committee, that's kind of obvious, because you stated that, so, that's good.
And then, another thing that I would recommend, and if the ladies in this community and the ladies in this municipality, if they don't have security in their home, they don't have much. And as far as dealing with compensation, I would suggest that over time, we accumulate millions of dollars into a fund, and call it the Unsatisfied Judgment Fund, and have this committee, which should be predominantly women, involved in adjudicating whether or not this compensation claim is valid, and whether they should actually receive additional monies from what they've already received. And because if you don't have security of your home, you don't have much at all.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. Our CEO will send out just a follow-up email once council's discussed this more. Thank you, Mr. Clifton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, do we need a 3-minute break? Would you like to continue?
I've got just water.
Yeah, okay, we'll take a 3-minute break.
Give me another one.
We are still recording live, I appreciate that, in case I say something that I shouldn't, which I do daily.
We've got one person online yet.
For
Trina.
9.1. This is just a delegation?
No, it's just a council decision.
Correct. It's not a public hearing or anything.
should we just go straight to that and go back to business?
Oh, we got bylaw 8 point, oh yeah, we still haven't done the other stuff.
You know?
That's entirely up to council again.
We'll just do 8, 9, then we'll go to regular business.
Eight, 9, the 2 items, back to the, okay. Good luck. Somebody say something to get the owl off of me, please.
Hello. It never goes on, oh, there we go.
There you are. Just can't comment.
I went for ice cream in San Adolfo yesterday. They have the best soft serve ice cream in, no, like Esso. Best soft serve ice cream in the world, hands down, I guarantee it. Anyway, so I went there and the older gentleman that works there, I don't know if you know the older man at all. He's super funny. He hates that ice cream machine. He hates it with all the passion in the world. And I said to him, man, you guys got the ice cream machine really late this year because it's usually done the first day of October. He said, don't remind me. He was so mad. Oh, I love that ice cream.
Is there a sale on right now?
Yeah, it's 50% on and off. I saw this. Yeah, I got a cup this big. Yeah. For like $2.
Oh, that's cheap.
Yeah, finished it 30 seconds and I'm back and got another cup. You were ready to go?
That guy got caught.
They did it.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Thanks.
Line up,
Too long. Okay, we will continue on with council. We'll go 8, 9, and then we'll jump to regular business. So we're gonna go with 8.1, bylaw 14-2021, close Lynn Lane and Grand Point Meadows, first reading. Do I have a mover?
Councilor Clayton.
Thank you, Councilor Clayton, second by Councilor Belanger, so.
Yeah.
So as a result of revisiting their futuristic phasing plans, in Grand Point Meadows, it would make sense to close Lynn Lane in order to redesign the area, accordingly. These plans were made earlier on without the full extent and knowledge of what was coming down the line, in regards to their development. Likely phase 9, I believe, would take into consideration Lynn Lane. So they just want to look at that, and council has a copy of that. And what I see is that by removing Lynn Lane, they'll have a better development for block 9 and block 10 as well, for having the lots split in two, instead of having an access road going through those blocks, in short.
Thank you. Any discussion from council? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None. That's carried. Item 9.1.1, Trina Burley, 202 Penny Lane, request to build garage before house. Do I have a mover? Councilor Manchuk, second. Councilor Belanger.
So at 202 Penny Lane, there's a request letter that was received by administration in regards to building a accessory building or garage before the primary dwelling. A copy of the site plan has been provided to council as well. As it is in our zoning bylaw under section 3.3C, I believe. It says, no accessory building or structure shall be constructed on any zoning site prior to the time of construction of the principal building to which it is accessory, except where it is allowed by obtaining council approval. So this is what the Brulés are looking for, is council approval in order to be able to put the garage before the primary building.
Thank you, council, and we'll open up for discussion. Anything to discuss? We talked about it in planning, tricky situation.
From the way I see it, it's not gonna be insulated, there's no plumbing. To me, there doesn't seem like there's any way anybody could live in something like that while they're building their house. It's simply for storage. It's just a matter of what comes first. That's my opinion. I know it's a bylaw, but, I actually don't have a problem
Okay,
with something like that.
appreciate that. Anyone else on council? Any other discussion?
I think if we stipulate that they can't insulate it or have hydro running in it, just to alleviate any concerns with our previous issues that we've had. I wouldn't be opposed to them having outlets for the outside run if they're gonna finish it before winter. But yeah, we'll just tell them no hydro, whether it's permanent or generated. Then that takes away any concerns.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just figured you want a building with hydro because that's what they want to use their equipment to build their house with. That's probably why they want this.
No, my understanding is for storage. They didn't spec.
I don't know.
But I just valid comment.
Yeah, just in her letter, it says primary dwelling to be constructed starting in December 2021, if in the event winter weather conditions are not conducive to building, causing a delay in the primary dwelling start date, and construction will start in April. So they just want to have stuff so that they can prepare for the weather.
Okay. Anything else from council? Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's 4-1. That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to 9.1.2, building permit report, September 2021. Do I have a mover? Councillor Belanger, second by Councillor Manchuk.
Just a quick brief overview for September building permits. 27 of them came forward, $14.2 million of estimated construction costs, with a building permit fees brought in at $44,200. So this brings our magnificent total for 2021 at 215 permits, $460 million worth of construction value at $190,000 of building permit fees. Numbers a little bit deceiving for the 460, just because, for the 14.2 million. Big part of that is the multifamily units in the Huron Creek area. Those are estimated value of 8.5, so there's a good chunk towards that one project. But otherwise, still good numbers for building permits.
Wow. That's great. Council, any comments?
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Pretty good pace. Wow.
Yeah. 7.95 mill rate for the rest of the time.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to last page. Back to item 3, adoption of minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor Manchuk, second by Councillor Clayton.
Last regular council meeting was October 5th, whereby we had 2 delegations, one regarding a rezoning of a parcel and the other one regarding communications protocol. We've also had a couple bylaw regarding rezoning of parcels and the addition of an item in a rezoning, as well as traffic impact studies requested for the Department of Manitoba Infrastructure for Ile des Chênes and St. Adolphe. Other than that, nothing much more to report.
Thank you. Council, any comments, questions, changes? No, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Item 4, committee reports and minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelche, second by Councillor Clayton.
Several reports listed for adoption, the Landfill and Utilities Committee, Emergency Services Committee, Councillor Ron Mamchuk regarding the St. Rosa Watershed District, Councillor Boulanger regarding the Crow Wing Trail, GPHA, and Howden Community, and last but not least, Councillor Clayton, late addition with the Sandiak CDI.
Councilor Wire.
Thank you. Council, any discussion on these?
I have a bunch of bullet points in my report that either staff or need addressing, need answering, need looking at, so we could discuss those at another date. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just an example, there's garbage under the bridge in St. Adolph. Who's responsible for picking that up? You know, this came out of the Crow Wing Trail meeting, so the trail has, you know, some issues and just who does what type of thing.
You talk about mattresses there or something like that?
I don't know, yeah.
Okay, yeah, if Councillor Boulanger, do you want to just send that in email with questions?
There's a report. Barbed wire fence.
Oh, you have the report, Jenny? Yeah, okay. Never mind. That's why the reports are there. Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? It's carried. 5.1, counts not paid to be approved. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelche, second by Councillor Mamchuk.
Two batches. First batch is 15,345 in the amount of 416,000 plus. Basically, there's 4 big ticket items. Please refer to the CFO report for more details. Batch number 15346, totaling $1,687, less of concern. Councillor Pelche had a question, replied with an answer to all of council at the same time regarding the capital fees and a Sandale utility charge. So those were answered in reply.
Thank you, council. Any comments or questions? Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. 5.2, payroll to be approved. Do I have a mover? Councillor Clayton, second. Councillor Boulanger.
This is in regards to payroll 21, which dates from September 26th to October 9th. Not much to report at this point in time. The CFO did prepare for me a outstanding balance of vacations and bank hours. As of the end of September, I just have not had the opportunity to review that. Once I do, I will relay my comments to council.
Thank you. Council, any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. 5.3, third quarter financial report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mamchuk, second. Councillor Pelche.
As promised, by yours truly, the CFO drafted up a report regarding our status at the third quarter. I'm not going to go into the full numbers attached in the report. I'll briefly just highlight some of the verbatim that has been offered. Basically, the revenues are doing quite well right now, mainly due to planning in our building permits. We've seen that just recently in our discussions. All departments are apparently on track, and we've received comments from Public Works that they will be spending up to their allotted budgets. Capital projects, the ones that we're not proceeding with, Padon Park, the office vehicle, office expansion, and the tanker. The tanker is basically deferred for 2022. The office expansion is still waiting for some numbers to come in and to be able to bring something to council to evaluate and make a decision if we wish to move forward on that or not. And also the Ile des Chênes Main Street sewer repairs in Ile des Chênes will not be done this year. Obviously, we have not yet received comments or feedback from Manitoba Highways regarding repaving of that street. The only department not doing well is the garbage and recycling portion. and that's mainly due to cart and bin purchases, all being upfront costs in 1 year. So we should be okay, but we haven't done an analysis to that degree to determine if we're on track or not. So basically, there's a lot of costs upfront because of purchases of the things. The utilities are in a good position, and for your information, you may have received communications from the office regarding the public utilities rates. So those are moving ahead as planned.
Thank you. Council, any conversation, discussion?
Two things. Minister Schuler would like a new correspondence regarding Main Street.
From the mayor or from the admin?
Could probably be from the mayor.
Okay, I'll see if he's available to make comment.
I threw it out there this morning when I met with him, and yeah, that program isn't there anymore. I'm like, it's your road. So he just asked that we
Push it again.
Okay.
Okay.
And question number 2, I can bring to staff later, just regarding some of the garbage bins and some people that didn't get them in Grand Point along Alana.
Yeah, they're still not there.
Carts.
Yes.
Yes, for whatever reason, the first estimation of carts was not correct. We've ordered them. They came in this week, so rollout will be next week.
Nice.
Perfect timing.
Perfect. Right before Christmas. Okay, anything else for council? Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, none, that's carried. 12, adjournment, do I have a mover? Councillor Pelletier, second by Councillor Boulanger. Any final comments? Anyone wanting to hold this meeting up any longer than it is? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? It's carried. Close the meeting at 8:57 p.m. Good evening, and thank you everyone for attending. Please press stop recording.